EXA version 1.3.2 introduces support for audio samples, which has been one of the app's most requested features. Now, you can use regular audio files with your virtual instruments, making it easier than ever to get the exact sound you want. You can browse these audio files in the Samples menu, and then select one to attach it to a ringer or loop. All of the samples you see here are included in EXA's default sample collection, with many of them trimmed, edited, and retuned to work nicely in the app. And of course, just like with Soundfont, you can install and use your own audio samples too. Samples in EXA use middle C as their standard pitch, so when the ringer's note is set to middle C, the sample will play using its original pitch. The sample's pitch will shift up or down based on the distance from middle C to the ringer's note. Audio samples don't define internal rules like Soundfonts do, so they can't do quite as much. For example, the sample volume will change based on the velocity of a ringer hit, but it won't give you the changes in expression like a Soundfont might. Also, samples don't have internal looping ranges, so they can't be sustained forever like some Soundfonts can. They'll always just play from start to end. This version of EXA also introduces live MIDI output. You can use audio software to capture EXA's MIDI events, feed them into a VST plugin, apply effects, and essentially generate any kind of sound you can imagine. With low latency settings in your audio software, you can perform with these MIDI-based sounds in real time, just like you can with EXA's built-in sounds. Let's start by selecting some MIDI devices. This menu allows you to assign up to 4 different devices named A, B, C, and D. You'll probably see at least one available system device as an option, but to route the MIDI into other audio software, you'll need to use a virtual loopback cable. I've been using one called Loop MIDI. Here I have created 4 virtual MIDI devices and assigned one to each available slot. Next, let's configure the ringers. We can select a few of them and use this menu to assign their MIDI output. To do this, choose one of the 64 possible combinations of device and channel number. You can also choose whether the ringer should play its usual sound in the app. You might toggle this if you want your MIDI output to generate sound elsewhere. Finally, let's set up your audio software to generate sound. Here I'm using Reaper with several tracks that receive input from specific MIDI devices and channels. Each track is armed and has a VST instrument applied to it. You'll also need to set your audio device to a low buffer size. Here, my latency is only about 10 milliseconds. With this setup, whenever one of these tracks receives a MIDI message, it will immediately generate a sound. To fight latency even more, you can use the Hit to MIDI latency slider. 0 here means that EXA will send MIDI messages at the exact time events occur, while a negative value means that EXA sends those messages up to X milliseconds before those events are ready to occur. When you record a loop, each ringer's MIDI settings are saved as part of the recording. This allows the loop to reproduce the same MIDI output that you caused during the live performance. You can also choose a new MIDI output for the loop, which overrides all the individual ringer output settings. So why would you choose different MIDI outputs for each ringer? First, you'll probably have each MIDI channel mapped to a different sound in your audio software. And second, when you use a bow or proximity tool on a ringer, its volume changes are sent at the channel level. You can keep those volume values isolated from each other by assigning each ringer to its own channel. Alright, let's jump into a bunch of other updates. The handles have a new icon that represents the monophonic playing mode. When you hold down the touchpad or button near to this icon, each new ringer hit automatically mutes the previous ringer. This makes it easy to play exactly one note or sound at a time. The file browsing menus now have vertical paging to better handle long lists of items. When the menus auto-navigate to a particular item, they will also jump to the correct paging level. The menu items now show a green progress bar while its corresponding file is loading. You can now navigate hands-free around the layout using a 3D rudder controller. The circular 3D rudder sits on the floor, and you put your feet on top of it. You can push downward on the rudder to tip it, and you'll start moving in that direction, or twist the rudder left or right, and you'll start to turn in that direction. The result is just like EXA's slide locomotion feature, except it's controlled with your feet. The following song was created using some of EXA's default samples, and the saved performance is included with your copy of the app. You can find EXA, the Infinite Instrument, on Steam. Thanks for watching.